daily fantasy football, look no further.
Patriots win the Super Bowl.
The stats have been compiled. The research is done. So come on and win a mill with D-Will.
Hey, what's going on? It's your boy D-Will. Win a mill with D-Will right here in the Urban After Dark Studios. And man, it's time to win some money once again. I just want to tell you guys that week one was miserable for me. I always tell you that week one is not a week that I appreciate because I don't get to use any of the stats and the math that I normally use to win money. It's kind of just a gut feeling type of thing. And there was a lot of things that went right that nobody really could imagine, and some things that went wrong that some people could imagine and some that couldn't. And we're going to get right into it as far as what we learned from week one. Before I do that, I just want to let you guys know to go check out DirecTV and DirecTV's NFL Sunday Ticket, even the DirecTV Red Zone. If you want to be able to watch every game every Sunday, then just call 855-946-6343. Again, that's 855-946-6343. Tell them your boy D-Will sent you. They're going to give you DirecTV for only $45, and that will include NFL Sunday Ticket, where you can watch every game every Sunday. You gotta love it. Hey, if you had some injuries this past week, then maybe you should have been checking out RotoSurance. You can protect your fantasy football investment against your star player's injury. All you got to do is go to rotosurance.com. That's RotoSurance. RotoSurance. Now, if you go to them and use the code DWILL, D-W-I-L-L, that's all caps. Again, D-W-I-L-L, all caps. You actually get 20% off. And yes, RotoSurance does protect you in daily fantasy sports. So if you're playing a game and somebody goes out hurt, Leonard Fournette, and that causes you to lose, then RotoSurance is probably what you should have been doing. Well, we're going to dive right in to what we learned in week one as we move position by position, and we're going to start up with our quarterbacks. All right, so for quarterbacks, let me just start off by the number one quarterback in fantasy, as far as DraftKings was concerned. I'm pretty sure it's the same on FanDuel, was Ryan Fitzpatrick. And I am not on the Ryan Fitzpatrick party bus. I do apologize. I just can't jump on the bandwagon quite yet. I do think that Ryan Fitzpatrick is going to cause a quarterback controversy out there in Tampa Bay if he continues to play the way that he is. But I'm just not on the bandwagon yet. Call me crazy if you want to. Going against Philadelphia next week, I just can't say that he's going to do the exact same thing this week that he did last week against a very talented Philadelphia defense. I'm just not on that bandwagon. If I was going to pick someone, and I guess I have to because that's kind of the point of the show, I'm going to pick Phillip Rivers. Yeah, somebody you have not heard me talk about at all. The beauty of daily fantasy sports is that every week you can kind of target somebody different, and I'm going to tell you why. First of all, Phillip Rivers did 32.96 points last week. 32 points is a very good showing for this quarterback. You're talking about somebody who had over 400 yards passing and 3 touchdowns, and he's going against a Buffalo defense that is absolutely horrible. I don't know if he's going to reproduce what he did over 400 yards, but I do know that with the Chargers offense and a horrible Buffalo defense, that he should be able to score points and score a lot of points. Obviously, I am also a Drew Brees fan. I believe that the New Orleans and Cleveland game is going to be one where points are going to be scored. Cleveland is clearly better. Obviously, it's just 1 week, and they haven't won a game yet. They just tied, but they are a little bit better. I don't expect for them to come out and put up a dub. However, I do expect for New Orleans to go out and score some points and score a lot of points. And New Orleans defense is really not that much better than Buffalo's if you really think about it. But they do have what I would have assumed would have been better cornerback play for New Orleans that did not happen. And so there is a possibility that happens this week. But still, as far as Drew Brees is concerned, I do believe that he's still a decent quarterback to pick. Obviously, everybody saw the magic that was Aaron Rodgers. Continue to watch his injury situation. I expect for him to be on the field. And if you want to talk about, because a lot of people were on me, why'd you pick Russell Wilson? Why'd you pick Russell Wilson last week? I mean, Russell Wilson still scored 22 points last week. I still stand behind the fact that he is typically, as far as a year-long, one of the better wide receivers. I'm not picking him this week because I have lots of respect for Khalil Mack now that he's over in Chicago. He was a one-man wrecking crew this past week, and I'm going to assume that he is going to be something similar this week, so I'm not jumping on with Russell Wilson. I will turn my attention to Tyrod Taylor. Tyrod Taylor, again, over at Cleveland, is playing against New Orleans, a New Orleans defense that apparently is giving up points. Like I said, it's just 1 week. We're going to really see. But Tyrod Taylor can have, just like Russell Wilson, he can give you points in the air as well with his legs. And from a quarterback situation, I really like it. I like a quarterback, that has the ability to continually score points in more than one avenue, much like Cam Newton. I don't expect for Cam Newton to be one of those again this week. I mean, he was only able to do 18 points against the Cowboys defense, against Atlanta's defense. I don't really expect much more, so I don't think that I'd want to take Cam. But you're talking about someone like Tyrod Taylor, who's playing against a New Orleans defense that did not show well in week 1. I am a fan of Tyrod Taylor for this week. Well, we're getting ready to move on to the running back positions, kind of looking at some of the stuff that we learned from there. Running backs, are you ready? So for running backs, there was no real surprise there. Alvin Kamara, we all knew was going to do great. I expect for him to do fairly decent again this week against Cleveland. James Conner was not a player that I was willing to pick in week 1. That was obviously a mistake. James Conner is a Pittsburgh running back. I heard someone say earlier today that as long as you're the Pittsburgh running back 1, then you're going to get points, or at least you're going to get touches. So I will say that assuming that James Conner, which obviously regardless if Le'Veon Bell comes back, James Conner is going to get touches. But James Conner is going to be another good one for this week. Again, he's going against Kansas City. Pittsburgh is going to give him touches. He played 92% of the snaps. Much like an Ezekiel Elliott, he's going to get the opportunities behind a really good offensive line. I think that he's going to continue to get points. Will it be 38 to 40 points next week as well? I don't know, but I think that you should still at least get 25. I am one of those people who, if you can get, especially for $6,700, if you can get 35 or at least 30 points, or 25, to 30 points out of your running back for $6,700, you're doing pretty good. Again, I'm not a fan all the time. I don't really talk about the top players. Obviously, Alvin Kamara is $9,500. Todd Gurley is $9,200 going against an Arizona defense. Those are kind of givens if you want to pick them. I do like to talk about some of the other players. The number 1 player is pretty easy. You're going off your gut, what you like to do when it comes to your running back 1, your wide receivers 1. It's those other players. It's that second running back that you have to pick that starts to question what you want to do and how you want to do it. And I'm still a fan of Adrian Peterson. I mean, at only 5,500 points, scored $5,500. He scored 23.6 points last week. He's going to get touches again this week against Indianapolis, and Indianapolis's defense is still trying to get there. I think that's a good way to put it. Indianapolis's defense is not one that's doing a whole lot of stopping, and I believe that Adrian Peterson and Chris Thompson, obviously, but Chris Thompson is 5,900. Adrian Peterson is 5,500. To me, Chris Thompson is more of the exciting slashing type of player. But when it comes down to the $100 to, well, in this case, $400 difference, Adrian Peterson scored 23.6 points. Chris Thompson scored 24.8 points. And that extra $400 may get you the player somewhere else that you need to get to the the type of team that you actually want. So I would go with Adrian Peterson in that situation for the $400 less. Now, if you're down to a point where you have money left over at the end and you say, hey, look, Chris Thompson is going to give me that one extra point, that could be the difference between me making $50 and $80. We never know. I've seen it happen over just 1.2 points. And that's a possibility. And maybe you'd go with Chris Thompson in that situation. You have to play that as you're looking at your team. Now, another player that I would suggest looking at, Austin Ekeler. Austin Ekeler is not necessarily one of those players where you just say, hey, he's going to be one of the top running backs, but he's getting touches. That's what we did learn in week 1. That Austin Ekeler is going to get touches. He's going to get passes thrown to him, where he had 5 receptions for 87 yards and a touchdown. And those are going to be touches and opportunities that he's going to continue to get. And this week, he's going to get them against, again, the Buffalo Bills defense, which is, horrible at best. There are a couple other players, Jay Ajayi. I'm still not necessarily there with him, although he is on a great Philadelphia team. I still would rather go and take some shots on a few other players that would be out there if I would be making those choices. Dion Lewis did a great job in week 1. I'm just not there with him yet. I would have to imagine that David Johnson is not going to have the same lackluster game, and neither will Ezekiel Elliott that they had in week 1. And so when you look at those two players, although the Cowboys have some issues at offensive line, the Giants defensive front is actually still pretty good. I'm not sure if I'm just taking a chance on Ezekiel Elliott with my money for this week. I think I would stick with some of those guaranteed, well, nobody's guaranteed obviously, but some of those bigger opportunity players like Alvin Kamara. But for my choices for this week, I think James Conner is absolutely a good pick. I do believe that Adrian Peterson is obviously a great pick. Austin Ekeler is a great pick. Saquon Barkley, a lot of people are really high on him at only $7,300. He's moving up the ranks a little bit as far as cost. Had 23.8 points last week. Is going against a Dallas defense that is way better than what it used to be. So you may want to watch out for that situation and stick with the players who are playing horrible defenses. And that's what we're going to do. So we're moving on to wide receivers. And this week in wide receivers, I talked about Tyreek Hill last week, and everybody called me crazy. And I told you there is a lot of speed with Tyreek Hill. And I told you in the preseason, I watched Tyreek Hill run away from 3 defenders and they put the ball in the air. I said, hey, in times past, they wouldn't have put the ball in the air. Guess what? This past week, they put the ball in the air and they let Tyreek Hill go out and make plays he did. I'm not a bandwagon type of person typically, but I told you Tyreek Hill last week, and he had the most fantasy points out of all wide receivers, 45.3 points as a wide receiver. That is incredible. He was followed by Michael Thompson, who also had 42 points. Those are only 40-point wide receivers out there. If you are trying to, maybe package deal a quarterback and a wide receiver together, Michael Thompson and Drew Brees, obviously a great choice. But if I had to take a chance out of those two, $7,600 for Tyreek Hill, $8,600 for Michael Thompson. Although Tyreek Hill is going against a Pittsburgh defense, much different defense than what he was playing against last week. And Michael Thompson is going against Cleveland. So you may want to actually look at that when you're trying to decide who's going to get another 45 points. D-Jack over at Tampa Bay. It's really good to see Deshaun Jackson starting to get opportunities again. I'm not quite on the Deshaun Jackson bandwagon. He was the number 3 wide receiver from week 1, and he's only $4,900. So it may be an opportunity for you. But if it was me, I'm going to go with Emmanuel Sanders. I told you absolutely nothing about Emmanuel Sanders, but when it was time to pick my team, guess what? I picked Emmanuel Sanders, and so I did you an injustice. I did not come back on, not even on my Instagram page, which I should have, and tell you that Emmanuel Sanders was going to be a good choice, and Emmanuel Sanders is playing Oakland this week. Guess what? He's going to be a good pick again. Randall Cobb is only $4,600. Yeah, you got to look at Randall Cobb. And you know who else on Green Bay that you have to take a look at? Geronimo Allison. Yes, Geronimo Allison is a must look at. $3,800, and he's going to get opportunities again. If you're looking for a player that you can stick, let's just say in your flex position, that you want to try to get 20 points out of, I'm going to say Geronimo Allison, Geronimo Allison, Green Bay, especially if Aaron Rodgers is playing. That's a player that you got to look at for only $3,800. I'm trying to tell you, you got to be able to look at him. You got to be able to put him in. Now, let's move on to tight ends. So, tight ends has been a problem child for me all off season. I really didn't know what tight ends I wanted to pick. I mean, we knew what Gronk was going to do, and he did that. I didn't really see Jared Cook doing what he was going to do. I mean, he's only 3,600 points. They are playing Denver. That's going to be a totally different situation. I don't expect for him to be there again this way. I like Will Dissly. Wasn't on my radar prior to this week, but after 22 points playing for Seattle, knowing that Seattle is playing Chicago and Russell Wilson is going to be rushed, there's going to be more dump offs. You're looking at wide receivers and tight ends in that situation, and I feel like Will Dissly is going to get his touches once again this week. So when it comes to tight ends, that may be one of the top looks that I actually give. I still like Jack Doyle. I feel like Indianapolis is eventually going to come along, and there's going to be some rust involved in Andrew Luck, and during that rust process, he's going to be looking at his tight end and giving Jack Doyle an opportunity. So that's definitely something that we'd want to look at. And we talked about flex players, and I always talk about flex with the tight ends only because those are those players where you want to get that little extra points for. I still say Geronimo Allison. You can go through an array of wide receivers like the Kenny Stills. Adam Thielen is actually a good wide receiver to look at. I didn't talk about him in the wide receiver section, but it may actually be a good opportunity to go with Adam Thielen too, but not in the flex position. I would be looking at somebody like a Stephon Diggs or someone who may be a little bit cheaper, but I really like Geronimo Allison at 3,800 points. I mean, he's somebody cheap that you can put in there. He'll afford you the opportunity to go up at the running back or the quarterback position, or even the wide receiver position, because you're not spending a lot of money on your flex player or your defense. So I was wrong about Arizona's defense. Last week, I said Arizona was going to have one of those defenses that would score you some points because they're going to be going after the ball, getting interceptions, getting fumbles. That's what they've been trained. That's what they did in the preseason. That is not what they did in week one. Arizona actually had one of the worst defenses when it came to last week's. So that led me to trying to look at a few other people who did good last week. The Jets did well. They had 26 points. Going against Miami may not be a half bad choice to take for this week. Green Bay is playing Minnesota, and Minnesota was number 2, and I'm just not into betting against Aaron Rodgers. I've said that a number of times. I'm going to continue to say it. But I think if you want to take a good defense that you know is going to be able to do something, you might want to go with Khalil Mack's defense, the Chicago Bears. That's somebody who we know is going to be doing some things. I think Jacksonville against New England hasn't just showed me that they're great yet. That may not be just a bad pick to actually take. I think this week I'm probably just going to stick with the $2,500 for the New York Jets, only because they scored the top points for last week. They're playing Miami. The ball is going to be in the air. They're going to have an opportunity to score points, and we're going to see if they can actually do it. Well, there you have it, guys. It is another week. Win a Meal with D. Will. Continue to follow me on Instagram. I'm going to be I won't make the same mistake I made last week. If I decide to take a player last minute, I'm going to stick it up on my Instagram page so you can take a look at it. So just go to Instagram. I heard D. Will, IHEARD DWILL. I heard D. Will. That's right. You heard D. Will right here on Win a Meal with D. Will. We out.